In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
The ruling on the field stands.
We deliver jerseys, funny foam fingers, and everything you need for the game. But what you really get is so much more.
FedEx Delivery.
Game day spirit. What we deliver by delivering.
Welcome to the Daily Memphian Tigers podcast. I'm Jonah Jordan, the football beat reporter around these parts, and today I'm joined by Drew Hill, and we're back at it after what was it? It was a brief hiatus.
For you, I did a podcast before the Wichita State game.
Yeah, nobody cares though, because I'm gone. I'm the star around here.
Okay, well, why don't you tell everyone why you were gone?
Knee surgery number 3.
That's unfortunate.
Football season takes a toll on some of us, Drew. Some of us are hard workers.
You can't. Is what you're saying is you can't take a hit?
Oh, I cannot. But a lot happened while I was gone with the football team. People have been hired. Ryan Silverfield's basically gotten the job since the last time I podcasted. A lot has changed, Drew. A lot has changed. Brady White's back. DeMonte Coxie's back. What do you want to talk about first? You want to go football or basketball?
Give me the rundown on the coaching hires for football.
So right now they've hired a few people. He hired an offensive line coach, take him a guy. He's been able to take a guy away from Duke. I think his name is Jim Bridges. Solid hire. Duke's been solid up front. I think they struggled in pass protection last year, but that had more to do with personnel than anything. But the run totals they've had over the last few years have been wild. He's hired 2 personnel guys, one away from USC, another away from Syracuse. He's pulling guys from Power 5 programs. It's been pretty impressive. Lost Jeff Cupper, pretty big loss, director of football operations, to Florida State. I kind of tried to warn people when I was writing that a lot of people were going to leave. This was not going to be an easy transition because Mike Norvell, he curated the staff. Yeah, I love that. I saw that on our editor, Clay Bailey, said he saw one, and I had to look it up, and I found it. It's the picture of the cornrows and Norvell. He pulled a lot of guys because he built a staff here he thought he could win with at a Power 5 level. That was the reality of the situation, and I knew a lot of those guys were going to jump, and it came to fruition. Storms, Josh Storms, great strength and conditioning guy who a lot of people would have liked to see stay. But he got an opportunity to go to Florida State, and how can you turn that down? You can't turn down an opportunity to go coach at the highest level. These guys, Tony Tokar's tight ends coach. He went to take an analyst job in Tallahassee because now he's going to have an opportunity to be promoted if somebody leaves to be a Power 5 coach because him and Norvell and him and Dillingham have that relationship, and he's going to contribute heavily into their offense because Norvell needed guys around him who know that offense, who know what he's doing. And so it was always going to be a situation where he pulled, and I thought Silverfield's done a great job in replacing those guys really, really quickly. And honestly, Charles Clark, great recruiter, pulled him from Ole Miss. It's fantastic. And I didn't even cover Mike McIntyre. It's really a great job.
What has been the best hire so far in your mind? Is it McIntyre?
Yeah,
I think he's the biggest name, at least, right?
Yeah, getting him was a huge win because all along big names were thrown out there for the defensive coordinator job. Mike Singletary was one. Dave Huxtable from NC State, a former Texas Tech guy whose name is escaping me right now. All were thrown out there, and there was so much interest in that job because I wrote about this a little bit at the Daily Memphian. Memphis is the same team it was 2 years ago. The defense is. It's the same personnel. And then you saw what Chris Ball did with it, and it wasn't fantastic. And Chris Ball left, and Adam Fuller came in, and you saw what he did with it and how good they could be at some points. And now those guys are getting older. They're going to have younger pieces. They've got some really good young guys that people don't know about coming in that are going to inject themselves into that defense. And they have the potential to be really good. That defense could be better, like not better than the offense. I don't want to say that, but better than what it has been in the past 2 years. Next year, and even better the next year. Like 2 years down the line, that defense could really be something especially if they're able to bolster up at the corner spot with Charles Clark recruiting.
So when Brady talked before the Cotton Bowl and he said, let's be honest, he made it sound an awful lot like he wasn't going to come back. And so I do think there was probably a point in time where he either changed his mind or started feeling more strongly about one or the other, which eventually leads him to come back. And so what do you think what the turning point was in that decision to get him to come back?
I think it was the Cotton Bowl. I don't know that for sure. I haven't talked to Brady. But I'm pretty sure his decision was made pretty soon after. I know a lot went into it. I know maybe he's gone to a lot of school. He has. He's doing a lot. PhD is not. Getting your PhD is not fun. I would not want to do it. It's not for me. It's not. Like, I couldn't do it. He's doing something I absolutely couldn't do. So you have that, and then you have what else is left to accomplish at Memphis. Memphis probably, if you do the same thing next season, you can't go any further. I mean, you'll make the Peach Bowl. It is an unfortunate reality of college football right now that Memphis isn't able to kind of climb that mountaintop that other people are able to because of the structure of conferences. It is what it is. He could finish as the Memphis's all-time leading passer. I think that's great. But I do think he wanted to come back. I don't think he's going to get drafted, even if he does come back. I don't think he would have gotten drafted had he gone out. And that probably played a part in it too. So
that I think that the latter part of that is probably very true. Yeah. Of course, going back to school is a tough decision, true. But and he was awesome. We're not taking anything away from Brady. No. It's just that it doesn't
a combination,
feel like he would have gotten picked.
He wouldn't have. It's a combination of age, athleticism, and a lot of people. I don't want to take anything away from Brady because he was awesome this year, but there's a reason Mike Norvell got the Florida State job because people thought this was his best coaching job he's ever done. Because they didn't think that this Memphis team was as talented as maybe ones he's had in the past. Because he was able to scheme guys open. He was able to do things on offense that maybe other people wouldn't have been able to do with his team. And he was able to take a guy like Brady, who people do think is limited, and turn into one of the best quarterbacks in Memphis history. That, I think, plays a big part in his draft stock.
Right. What else stands out about the offseason moves? You know what? It feels like so far with Silverfield that he couldn't have done a better job than
the only thing he could have done is winning the Cotton Bowl.
Right.
So that takes him from 100 to a 95.
What's based on what's going on at Penn State right about now, it damn sure feels like Memphis won that Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, and I do wonder, the only thing I do wonder is if Mike, and this will be something I ask him, if he regrets not being as aggressive on the sideline. Maybe go for it on one of those fourth downs.
You mean Ryan?
Yeah, Ryan. Would Mike Norvell have been more aggressive? Would Ryan, as something I'll ask Ryan, if he could go back, would he have gone for it on one of those fourth downs instead of kicking field goals? But a lot of those were when you've
got
situations.
Riley Patterson and it's automatic.
I think that's the only thing I've wondered about this last month. You go and look at his staff and who he's putting together, and it's really, really impressive. I was telling somebody about this the other day. I expected it to look a lot like Mike Norvell's first staff, but with more of an NFL influence sprinkled in. I thought you'd see some up-and-coming NFL guys pulled out of analyst positions or offensive line jobs, defensive line jobs here and there, and pulled to come to Memphis. Because he has a wide-reaching influence. I thought you'd see other college guys he's coached with in the past jump to come to Memphis, up-and-comers who are looking like, oh, I can go to Memphis for a year or 2 years, and I can get a job from there. or I can stay at Memphis. I can be successful. Maybe like Ryan, I can be the head coach there one day. I thought that was what his staff would look like. I did not expect him to start pulling from Power 5 programs. That completely shocked me.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty surprised that they're able to get a guy like McIntyre, who is a coach of the year.
Yeah.
Like, did an amazing job at Colorado.
People don't realize that Ole Miss defense 2 years ago was one of the worst. I went and watched them in person. It's the worst defense I've ever seen in person in my life. That's not an exaggeration. It's not me. It is literally, I watched them play Alabama. It is the worst defense I've ever seen in my life.
Live.
Yeah.
Because we all watched what LSU did to Oklahoma this year.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But
like live, it's the worst defense I've ever seen in person. And that includes any Memphis defense or any defense Memphis has played. It was horrific. For him to come in and actually, like, they still weren't great statistically in some areas, but for him to be able to come in, and they had some moments. They were effective. They were better. They injected some talent in at linebacker, and he was able to do some things. And they completely changed the scheme. I'm interested to see how he changes the scheme if he does, because Memphis did switch from a under Fuller. They went from a 3-4 to a 4-3. I'm interested to see if they'll go back to a 3-4 because that's what Mike McIntyre runs. But because I don't know if I have personal questions when it comes to that, if they're able to do it. And if they are, great, whatever. They may have to run something modified for a little bit until he gets who he wants in. But that's a grand slam. To get a guy who coached at Colorado, who coached at Ole Miss, who a lot of people thought Lane Kiffin was going to keep at Ole Miss for a little bit. It's astounding to me.
yeah, that was obviously a big pickup. How far are we from spring football?
I don't think they've set a date yet.
Okay.
But not soon enough. I wish it was tomorrow. To be honest with you, I wish we could go out there tomorrow, and I want to see. But we've still got a signing period. We've got a few months. I don't expect. Somebody tweeted at me last night. Why aren't you writing about signing or recruiting? Even though I did the other day. At the Daily Memphian, I wrote a little bit about recruiting. I don't think they have a lot of spots left. They could have as few as one scholarship spot to use in this late period, unless they're transfers or they ask anybody to leave, which is pretty much what they've done so far.
No. Unless somebody were to walk away from the program, Jonah. You know how that works.
So far, anybody who's transferred, I'm pretty certain has been asked to not return. Like, if it happens with anybody else, I'd be shocked. I don't expect much transfers. Everybody over there loves Ryan. They're excited. They're pumped up. There are a couple guys that could grad transfer that would be eligible to be immediately if they were to go anywhere else, and kind of watching those guys here and there. But yeah, they don't have very many. They don't have very many spots. Right now, and signing days at the beginning of February, and we'll see what happens then. And now we'll pause for a brief message from our sponsor.
The Daily Memphian Tigers podcast is brought to you by FedEx. Possibilities. What we deliver by delivering.
All right, basketball, man. What's been going on?
Okay, so on to basketball. Well, the Tigers dropped, obviously, the game at Wichita State, which was their second loss in a row since the last time we talked to you. It was a very tough atmosphere. It was as crazy as we all thought it was going to be. They didn't shoot it particularly well. Some of the same problems plagued them that have plagued them all year. And I think people were probably a tiny bit more panicked than they should be. I actually put out a request. I said, I want to know what your biggest concerns are. And I had over 100 responses almost immediately because people were
I have
ready to write. Yeah. And you're right. There are still concerns, but people were ready to sort of write them off right there. I think some were, at least, not everyone. And so then they turn around and they play a game at South Florida right after that, and they have to escape in the final minutes to pull out I believe it was a 4-point win. And so right now there are still several questions about how good or bad they'll be moving forward, but that was a critical win.
So here's my problem. have several issues at the moment with this team. They haven't gotten any better since the beginning of the year. I don't think they have.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
You don't think Precious has gotten any better?
Precious has, but the team itself hasn't. One person doesn't equal the team.
I would argue that that's not necessarily the case.
I think that...
Think about who they played at the beginning of the year versus who they're playing now.
I just don't see it. I have legitimate questions about what they're doing on offense because it doesn't seem like anything
I think that's fair.
They do has a purpose.
They
can't run horns.
I understand why a lot of people have concerns about the offense. And frankly, from what I hear behind the scenes and sort of what goes on, I know for a fact that Penny is such a defensive-minded coach that even now, their main focus is still on defense. And even though they're been awesome on defense all season long, that's just Penny's coaching philosophy. He just thinks that defense is going to win you games, that getting stops is going to win you games. He's of the mindset
it's true.
that he wants to hold the other team to 0 and that they will just get buckets. And that is, it's fine because they've been very successful on defense, but there are questions to be answered on offense for sure. I think that's a fair criticism.
If you're going to do that, there has to be some sort of efficiency to what you're doing on offense, and there isn't that right now. I mean, they're not hitting threes. They're not, like, Precious is carrying the offensive load just because he's an athletic freak and he's an animal and he's so good. And they need a guard. They need a guard that is not Alex Lomax to emerge.
Correct.
Or it's going to be a problem.
Well, they have my biggest concerns. And by the way, you brought up Precious, and I don't want to get all the way into this because Penny's getting ready to talk in a couple hours, and by the time this podcast's up, it'll be old news. But he is dealing with a bit of an ankle thing. It sounds like he tweaked his ankle in practice, but he did go to shoot around this morning. We'll see what
they need him to play
where they go from there moving forward. But again, I don't want to get totally into that because Penny's going to talk in a couple hours, and it won't matter.
Yeah.
But no, I think there are a few questions on offense that need to be addressed.
Way more than a few.
The turnovers are a serious problem. I think they do have something with the pick and roll where when Tyler or Alex operate it with Precious. Now, and that has been their most effective 1-2 punch has been Precious and Nalo or Precious and Tyler. But they're still turning it over when it's those two guys, and they're killing themselves doing that. So that's one of my big concerns is, like, you have to find a way to fix the turnovers no matter what.
What's up with Boogie?
He's just his confidence can't be very good right now. I think there's problems there.
Problems with his confidence, you mean?
Problems with his confidence. I also wonder if, like, you know, he's a guy that leaves Duke, comes to Memphis at the last second. He has all these high expectations. I wonder if the expectations were maybe set a little bit too high from the beginning.
Yeah.
Just because
you had Jonathan McGoney talking about him being an NBA prospect and
right.
Everybody pumping him up, even though we didn't have a very big sample size of him being a great prospect.
Exactly.
So, yeah, maybe the expectations need to be adjusted. Maybe he's going to be a good maybe he's a guy who comes on later as a good second-year player. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
He clearly has the tools to be a good college basketball player. Is he a potential first-round draft pick like we thought? I mean,
now, no. Right now, because he totally could be one day. Like, he totally could.
Right, but not after his freshman year like some thought he could.
He could light the world on fire for the next 2 months, including the tournament, and that's what the Tigers need right now. They need a guard who can dribble, who can shoot, who can penetrate and
Tyler
dish.
is playing a lot better.
Yes, Tyler is playing a lot better.
That's a positive sign.
It is, yeah. It's really, like, what really brought that about? Has he talked about it at all? Is he just more comfortable now?
He's getting playing time. He's getting a lot of playing time, especially late in games, which is helping. And when he gets one of those first 2 3-pointers to go down, you know he'll get going. It's just a matter of when he can finally see it go through the basket. That he's one of those guys that just needs to see it. He's a super insanely confident guy. I just wrote a story on dailymemphian.com about the 3-point celebrations. And Tyler, I mean, it's so funny to hear him talk about his whole nose wipe thing.
It's gross to me.
I don't want to get into all the details. I asked Tyler about it to sort of explain it in layman's terms to everybody. And he kind of just laughed it off and just said, there are rap elements. There are rap music elements to that celebration. If you want to look it up, what it means on the internet, feel free, but I'm not going to tell you. But no, it's just so funny to hear him talk about it. Like, you know, that there's an art to his celebration. He can't just make it and do the celebration and walk away immediately. He's got to turn around, make sure the crowd is looking. Like, I mean, it's insane how confident the kid is, and you just know that's never going to go away. So it's a great sign that he's playing well. You mentioned needing another guard. I think that they need another big. Like, I think that that's the problem. And I think that the answer, and I wrote about this too in the notebook, I think that the answer is Malcolm Dandridge, and Penny moved Malcolm into the starting lineup, which makes me believe that he probably thinks it is too. So, but they have had nothing outside of Precious in a lot of games this year. And it's I know Isaiah's had a nagging quad thing, but he hasn't been effective. Lance hasn't been effective. And Malcolm at times has showed he can play his role, be a good rebounder, and at least make the shots near the basket. So you watched him a lot in high school.
Oh, yeah. No, I love Malcolm. I think he's great, but he's not. The problems with this offense aren't that the bigs aren't good. It's that you have a lot of people who, when the ball gets to them, they can't make their wide open shots. They turn the ball over, and then there's just a lot of movement with no purpose. There's a lot of, I have the ball, I don't know what to do with it, I'm going to take this person one-on-one, and it ends up in a turnover or a missed shot. That's just the reality. Like, that's like Malcolm Dandridge isn't out on the perimeter handling the basketball.
Right.
I'm sure if Malcolm got the ball near the basket, I'm sure if Isaiah Maurice got the ball near the basket, I'm sure if Lance Thomas got the ball near the basket. And Isaiah and Lance both have missed like a
lot of threes. So that I get. That frustration I get. That is part of the offense. They do space those guys out. They do move them to the 3-point line. They need to make those shots. But that isn't the fundamental problem. The fundamental problem is your guards haven't been good enough. So I guess you have two guys that have worked well.
Yes, true. Okay, so my big question for you. Next game is against Cincinnati, correct?
Correct, on Thursday.
Do you need to win that? If you lose that game, are you starting to get worried about missing the tournament if you don't win the conference championship?
Yes. To be perfectly honest. Because, look, Memphis is going to lose more games this year. They're probably going to lose a road game, at least one road game that you don't expect them to lose. That's just how college basketball works, though. Duke wasn't supposed to lose to Clemson on Tuesday night, right? So, but it happens, and it's going to happen to Memphis. It's just going to happen. But once you start losing at home to teams that might finish in the middle of the conference, those are the games Memphis has got to have if they're going to make the NCAA tournament and be like a 5 or 6 seed.
They need to beat Cincinnati. They need to beat SMU, UConn, Temple, and Cincinnati and Houston. That's a lot of games left that they could lose. They've got another one against Wichita State. They have 2 more against Houston, 2 against UConn, 2 against SMU.
They've got a tough road trip to Tulsa next week.
How good is Tulsa?
Houston.
Yeah.
So they could easily lose more games.
I could see them losing 4 to 5 more conference games.
I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. Now,
please feel free if I'm wrong. Like, I don't hope that. I'm trying to be realistic. Like, if I'm wrong, tweet at me. 100%. In 4 or 5 weeks, I'm wrong. Be like, you're an idiot. And I'll be like, yeah, I'm glad I'm an idiot. But
you're not as optimistic as most people with the basketball team.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Like, I mean, Kelvin Sampson, that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't see them going 2-0 against Houston.
And
I think it's probably going to be 1-1.
Right now, they're getting by because they're more athletic. They can play 5 people who are above average athleticism-wise, and not everybody can do that. You can throw 5 people out there who have a legitimate NBA athleticism, and that makes for a great defense at the college level, especially when some guys are as smart as like Alo and Damian and Precious and Malcolm. But the offense is going to continue to be a question because they look lost, and there doesn't seem to be anything to fix it right now. There has been no sign to me like, okay, yeah, that's going to be the way they fix it.
I mean, they could fix it's not you don't think it's impossible.
No. I just right
you just
now
don't see the path.
Yeah, I don't see the path because right now you're asking a bunch of freshmen to hit threes on a longer 3-point line than they're used to with not great spacing. And then you're asking a bunch of freshmen to not turn the ball over when all they've done is turn the ball over all year. And then you keep getting defense pounded, defense. It's all great if you can hold somebody to 40 points, but if you can't score 35 without turning the ball over 28 times, it's a problem. The next time they play Wichita State, I would be willing to bet they're closer to 30 turnovers than they are 10. The next time they play South Florida, I would be willing to bet the same thing. That is a fundamental problem and that they need to fix, and if they don't fix it, that's what I'm saying. If they can't fix the offense, they're going to lose 5 or 6 more games.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more optimistic than you are. I just think they have athletes that are so much better than everyone else in the conference that they're going to still win the majority of their games. I can see them losing 3 more conference games for sure because you still have another game against Wichita State, who's very good, but you're at home, so you probably like your chances there. You got 2 games against Houston still. Like I said, you're probably, in a good scenario, you're probably going 1-1 against them. So, there's 2 easy chances for a loss. You're probably going to lose at least 1 game that you don't think you're going to lose just because that's college
that
sports.
ECU game could be sneaky. ECU and what is it, at Tulane? Sneaky games.
Tulane's beaten some people now this year.
ECU is beaten Memphis in the past.
And you still got to make a trip to Cincinnati. You're right. It's a more difficult.
Like the conference is bad, but the loss of James combined with the fact that the offense is struggling like it is has put Memphis in a very precarious position.
Exactly. I think on the optimistic side, 2 or 3 losses would be pretty good if from here on out.
I hope maybe we can be at the end of the year and they've lost 2 or 3 or 4 games. And you just go through and run through the tournament. Maybe they'll gel at the tournament time because that's what happens with some young teams. You get to the tournament and it's like, okay, it clicks. We figured it out. Lester will be hitting threes. Boogie will be doing his thing. The rotation will be something that makes sense. Like maybe Isaiah and Lance both fall out. The loss of Isaiah Stokes now, we didn't think much of it at the time, but now it's kind of like, man, not being able to get him eligible, that really stings.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. He actually traveled with the team for the first time to South Florida, and I noticed him. I immediately went to Phil Stukenborg, the SID. I was like, has he traveled? He's like, yeah, and then it turns out that was his first road game that he went to all year. But no, yeah, they definitely could have used him. It's unfortunate that he's not ready to go. All right, that's going to do it for us today. You can follow me on Twitter at DrewHill_DM. You can follow Jonah on Twitter at _Jonah Jordan. You can get this podcast or any other Daily Memphian podcast on iTunes, Google, or Spotify. Thanks for listening.
We deliver tickets, team merchandise, and everything you need for the game. But what you really get is so much more.
FedEx Delivery.
Game day spirit. What we deliver by delivering.
In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.